Would you like to cultivate an enduring love in your marriage? Well, if you do, then this podcast episode is for you. And if you're not there yet, I think you're going to learn a lot today. And we've got a great special guest today. His name is Christopher Falconer. He's an author and he's got a wonderful message to share about enduring love. And I can't wait to jump in. But hey, Chris, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thanks. Happy to join. Glad I have this opportunity to connect.
Yeah, definitely. And I know, before we started to record, we were talking a lot about how I think just the ministry and the messages that we both have are really aligned, and I think again our audience is going to get a lot out of what we're going to talk about today. And I guess before we talk about that topic of enduring love, do you mind just sharing a little bit about yourself and your marriage and whatever else you feel like is important?
Sure enough. Well, first and foremost, as you mentioned, my name is Christopher Falconer. I'm a devout Christian. First things first, a husband, a father, a grandfather to two adorable children, Savannah and Dominic. Professionally, I'm a certified financial planner and a wealth advisor, and a author whose 30-year marriage to my adorable wife, Jacqueline, has become both my classroom and my testimony. I'm driven by a passion to help others build relationship that's grounded in love, integrity, and faith. And that has motivated my writing, including my new book, Enduring Love, that speaks to how 1 Corinthians 13 provides guiding principles for nurturing relationships that last. So I'm hoping that my experience and the lessons I've learned can be a benefit to your audience.
That's great. Yeah, I got to say, with being married for over 30 years, yeah, you definitely have a lot of wisdom. I'm sure you've had a lot of ups and downs, and you've got a lot of, what to do, what not to do, and I love how it sounds like you've stayed true to this calling that God has had for you and this message that He's put on your heart. And I think that in combination with just everything you've experienced in your life is going to be an amazing, I think, testimony for everyone to hear. And so, yeah, this is awesome. And I love how you said, first and foremost, I'm a Christian. And, I find that that's one of the most important things because just personally speaking, I've been through a divorce in my past that most of my audience knows about. And God was really not a part of that marriage at all. And then now being married to Heather, it's something where God is at the center and He's important, and we make sure that we pray and He's the focus. And so, and there's quite a bit of a difference there. And so I'm sure again, with what you're going to talk about, obviously God is going to be central here, of course. And so I guess we can just start. Really wanted to ask you first question. How did this topic about enduring love kind of come about? Was there anything in your marriage that happened that sort of sparked this or shifted this for you to focus on this?
Yes. Good question, Brian, especially to start this conversation on how to cultivate enduring love in our marriage. In reality, enduring love is more of an experience than a concept. That's how I actually describe my marriage experience.
Mm.
If you were to ask me to give my marriage a title, if my marriage was a movie and you asked for a title, the title would be Enduring Love,
Mm.
because that's really been my journey. And yes, there was a turning point in my marriage that changed how I viewed love. I spoke about it in chapter 1 of my book. How I actually woke up one day, Brian, and realized how far the current of life took me from shore, and quietly it disconnected me from my wife.
Mm.
What started as good intentions, my pursuit of career advancement, improving my financial status, slowly created distance between us. Our home, yes, was functional, but the warmth and passion that once filled it began to fade. I had blinders on, quite frankly.
Mm.
I was blind to what was happening until my wife brought it to my attention. That experience, I think, Brian, is common when you think of in our world today, what 40% or more of marriages and in divorce. You wonder why. I suspect that, like me, the current of life that pull marriages and relationships away from shore are oftentimes the issue. When I talk about current of life, Brian, I'm talking about schedule, responsibility. These tides exhaust you. The daily grind of quality connection and conversation, those things become logistical, not relational. For me, that was a big challenge, my career. Another one was my health issues. My health has been a challenge I have a upper motor neuron disorder, 30 years in the making, but that has actually been a major challenge where my emotional fatigue, my health struggles, it really changed the whole emotional dynamics in my relationship. And without compassion and teamwork, couples can drift apart when they go through these issues. Beyond that, quite frankly, for Christians, we oftentimes don't want to acknowledge, but when faith moves from the center of a relationship to the background, couples lose their compass. Prayer, worship, and spiritual intimacy, those anchor us. Without them, the tides of life can carry both hearts in separate directions. So those were the three things for me that were tides that really change my marriage dynamics. That's my struggles, or those were my struggles at around 8 years into my marriage. For other people, I mean, there are other tides. There is unresolved conflict where there's unspoken resentment, misunderstanding that create undercurrents beneath the surface. Over time, they erode trust, emotional safety, and without humility and forgiveness, you just cannot bridge that gap. There are financial pressures. Relationships have money stress, whether from job loss, debt, maybe different financial priorities. Those things can stir strong waves of fear, blame, and control. There's also parenting issues. Raising children
Right.
often shift the focus from us to them. Making family responsibility is certainly a priority, a noble one, but can oftentimes leave little space for nurturing the marriage itself. And so when you think of how does 40% of marriages end in divorce, I think oftentimes it's these undercurrent that we lose sight of until we find ourselves, as I was, far away from shore. Luckily for me, Brian, my faith and First Corinthians 13 was my lifeguard. And I call it my lifeguard because it really brought me back to shore. Not just brought me back to shore, but it resuscitated my marriage and my connection with my wife. That experience taught me that because what First Corinthians 13 did for me is it helped me really understand patience, the role of patience,
Yeah.
which
Right.
for me was lacking, Brian,
Hmm.
kindness, humility, forgiveness. Those words became more than verses in the Bible. Those became principles that helped me to resuscitate my marriage. So that experience, 8 years into my marriage, taught me that love just doesn't happen randomly. It's nurtured. And so when you look at the high rate of divorce in our marriage, it tells me that our world desperately needs tools to nurture enduring love. And that's why I write on the subject
Mm.
and speak to that.
That's so good. There's so much in there that you just talked about that's so good. And yeah, I mean, it really all comes back to the Bible. I mean, that's really our guidebook for how to live life. And the thing that I love most about the Bible is it's more than just that. There's a power in it, obviously, with God and the Holy Spirit who lives within us. So it's much more than just a self-help book. But yeah, I agree with you too about the drift. I think that's something that people don't think about a lot. A lot of times we think about, oh, a marriage is in trouble because of some big event that happened, an affair or one big episode, whatever it might be. But sometimes it is that drift because life is complicated. There's all kinds of things that are, happening and going on for people and in a marriage, and we can get off track. And I love how you talk about First Corinthians being that anchor, and I was going to say too, with you mentioned that, yeah, divorces or excuse me, marriages end in divorce about 40% or so in America. And then two, I recently found out that second marriages, it's even higher. It's like 60%. And I think third marriages go to 75%. And so
Yeah.
it goes to this thought of like, oh, I think we think, you know what, if as long as I just find somebody else, this problem that I'm having over here, it won't happen with this new person. And my thought is, well, maybe that problem won't happen, but there'll be something else. And
Yes, yes.
so we need to look at something else, which again, for you, like you said, is First Corinthians 13.
Yeah, no question. Because see, what enduring love does, it invites us to slow down, tend to it daily, and protect it carefully. Because when love is rooted in patience, watered with kindness, fertilized with forgiveness, have the sunlight of truth for energy, is mulched for protection and emotional warmth, and pruned of envy, pride, boast, it always bloom in season. If we don't do all that, the result isn't or the result is that 40% divorce rate, Brian. And so the reality is that most of us were just never taught how to do a relationship right, marriage right. We go to school, we get degrees for so many different things, but oftentimes, what I think is the most thing in life, or the most important investments. See, I deal with investment all day, money investments, and realize that people look at the biggest investment in their faith and in their relationships. Because ultimately, that's what's going to bring satisfaction into your life. Money doesn't do it. There's a big space we have for satisfaction, which is really our spiritual life and our emotional life. And we got to nurture those two things.
Yeah. Yeah, it is really all about love as an action, not a feeling, so to speak. I mean, there is a feeling there sometimes when we first meet somebody, there's the butterflies and all that, but really love should be about an action. I love how you use the analogy of a garden. That's something that we talk about. Heather actually talks about that a lot. And as many of you may notice in our audience, she's not here. She's a little under the weather today, but she'll be back here soon. But yeah, she loves to talk about marriage as a garden. So I love that you use that analogy and all the different components of it, the sun and the water and the care and the temperature and all that stuff. I think it fits perfectly. I wanted to ask you a little bit about forgiveness. I think you had mentioned that word earlier, but yeah, how important is that, or what would you have to say about forgiveness being a part of all of this?
Oh, that's one that it's a challenging subject. My faith, thanks to my faith, Brian, my faith has completely reshaped the way I see forgiveness.
Hmm.
It's no longer just a choice; it's an act of love and worship. In marriage, forgiveness isn't about ignoring hurt; it's about inviting God into it. It's saying, "Lord, help me see my spouse the way you see them." Forgiveness allows healing to flow where pride would build walls.
Hmm.
It reminds us that grace was first extended to us through Christ. And because of that, we can extend it to others. There have been moments in my marriage when forgiveness was the bridge that carried us back to connection. It isn't, forgiveness doesn't erase the pain overnight, But what it does, Brian, is it opens the door for understanding,
Mhm.
tenderness, and growth. In many ways, forgiveness is love's greatest test and also its greatest triumph. It turns conflict into communion and keeps love rooted in humility and grace. That's the power of forgiveness.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so good. We talk a lot about forgiveness as well, and it's very important to us. And you're right about forgiveness. I mean, it is a choice, and it is something that can be given immediately. But yeah, things like trust and healing and moving forward, sometimes that takes some time, and that is a process. So, but I love how you say I don't know if you use the word catalyst, but it's kind of like the catalyst for those things happening. And then I also love, you've probably heard these statements about how, if you're not forgiving of someone, it's like taking a poison pill and hoping the other person dies, or um, setting yourself on fire and hoping the other person dies of smoke inhalation. It's like it's
Yeah.
really just destroying you when you're not forgiving.
So,
Yeah, and so
so
it
true.
is.
So true.
Yeah. And there's all kinds of, I've read about all kinds of benefits of forgiveness, including obviously your marriage relationship, but it also apparently helps with mental health and physical health. Apparently there have been studies that talk about how it helps with depression and anxiety and things like heart health, and it's just amazing. It's a pretty amazing something that God has given us to be able to do. So, yeah, I'm glad
Well,
that that's important.
no question. Forgiveness, so we fool ourselves in thinking that forgiveness is for the other person. It's for us. It's for us.
That's right.
And when we recognize that, or the quicker we can recognize that, the better it is for not just our mental health, but our relationship, because it clears the way in how we engage others.
Yeah. That's right. And I do think sometimes it is hard to completely avoid conflict or completely avoid disagreements. I mean, they're going to happen, but it's all about kind of, what am I doing to be better with that? And if I can't completely eliminate it, what's a tool that I can use on the other end, which would be forgiveness. So I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, the big thing is that in spite of my shortcomings, my faults, and all that I've done, when I realized that grace was first extended to me through Christ, if I can keep that in front of me, then it makes it easier. So I never lose sight of that. I
Mm,
was forgiven for all that I've done, my shortcomings, my sins, my
yeah.
transgression. So why cannot? Why should I not give someone else the same grace?
Yeah. That's good because I sometimes I forget about that. It's like, oh, I don't want to forgive this person. They don't deserve it. But if I think about it, God forgave me when I didn't deserve it. So why wouldn't I do that for someone else? Yeah, and if I'm not really remembering that or thinking about that, then it is so easy to just say, you know what, well, they don't deserve it. So, and like you said too, it's not about them, it's about me. So, yeah, there's the things we need to keep in mind. Yeah. And I wanted to ask you, Chris, if you don't mind, I know a lot of people that are probably listening to this, they might be in their car, they might be running, multitasking, they're busy. They may be thinking, gosh, a lot of these things that you're talking about, like it's just hard. It's just I'm busy, I'm stressed, you know, can you give me something simple, a few faith-based practices, so to speak, that we can do to reconnect? Because man, I just don't have a lot of time here.
Well, if you're asking me to, how can I break down enduring love as a concept so listeners understand the concept?
Yeah.
I mentioned earlier, and you talk about how your wife used the whole concept of gardening. Enduring love is it's like gardening. Everyone can relate to gardening. Like a garden, love needs daily attendance. The garden of the heart always thrives and blooms when it's nurtured in the soil of patience, watered with kindness daily, fertilized with forgiveness, have the sunlight of truth to energize it. Not just that, but it's mulch for protection and emotional warmth, and always pruned of pride and envy and boast. So enduring love then is intentional love. It's choosing to cultivate what God has planted in your heart so that over time, relationship becomes something living, fruitful, and deeply rooted, not just in emotion, but in grace.
Mm.
So I think people can understand the whole concept of their garden, and you're never going to enjoy a beautiful garden with blossom and all this aroma unless you nurture the garden. Well, the same thing with your love. If you don't nurture it, you never get to have an experience.
That's so good. That makes me almost like I've thought about what if I got a little posty note and just, wrote down, mulch equals protection and some of these other things you talked about and just maybe stick that in my wallet and just be something that I can kind of quickly remember. Yeah, because I think what you're talking about here, it's nothing, we're not talking about anything that's going to take a lot of time. It's just like doing this as a process, or just kind of making this a part of your life, so to speak, and then creating that habit maybe is a better way to say it. So yeah, that
Agree, agree, agree.
yeah,
No,
yeah.
now is it as when I walk through First Corinthians 13, those are my takeaway. I like to make the Bible practical. How do I live it? And Jesus used proverb a lot because it helps people visualize and understand the application. And so I try to do that when I read lessons and understand it. I always figure out how can I best explain this so people get the meat of it. And that's First Corinthians 13. And when I look at gardening, the garden of your heart, that's what First Corinthians 13 is all about.
Yeah. Yeah, and we before we again started to talk, before we hit record, I had mentioned that Heather and I will sometimes ask couples to read that chapter and then in place of the word love, put their own name. And then I think you might have mentioned this as it's almost like a mirror that you can put up to yourself and you can you'll quickly hit upon a word that you'll notice there'll be a nudge in your heart. Like if I say Brian is patient, Brian is kind, Brian keeps no record of wrongs, I might be like, ooh, you know what? I did bring up something the other day to Heather that I was trying to maybe stick a dagger in her, so to speak. And well, wow, I was keeping a record of wrongs, and it'll real quickly. We talk a lot about the Lord convicts us. He doesn't condemn us. He just shows us this is what you've done. Let's be better about it. So, uh,
Yeah.
yeah, so good. Hey, I know we've been talking a lot, probably to married couples, but I think, people that are not married yet or looking to get married might be thinking a lot about this concept of enduring love. And so, is there anything that they can do to prepare themselves, I guess, when life changes for them, whether it be married or whatever happens?
Yeah, that's such a thoughtful question, Brian, because as I mentioned before, over times we encounter challenges in life because we're just not prepared for it. We're not prepared for marriage because enduring love doesn't begin at the altar. It begins in the heart long before you meet your partner. For singles, this season is sacred preparation. I think it's where you learn to love yourself the way God loves you, to heal, to grow, and to become emotionally and spiritually whole. The best way to prepare for enduring love is to practice it now.
Mm,
Cultivate patience, kindness, honesty, forgiveness in your everyday relationship with your family, with your friends, even your coworkers. See, the habit of love you build today becomes the foundation of the love you'll share tomorrow. And most importantly, anchor your heart in God's love first. When you know you're fully loved by Him, you won't look for another person to complete you.
mm,
You look to them to complement the work God is already doing in you.
yeah.
That's the kind of wholeness that allow you not just to begin beautifully, but to endure beautifully through every season of life.
Mm. That's great. Yeah, I'd never thought about that before about how, because a lot of times singles will come to us or whatever and kind of say, "Well, I'm not married. I don't know how to do this stuff." And what you're saying is No, you can practice these concepts in every relationship that you have. It's nothing different. I mean, yeah, it's going to be the relationship with your romantic partner, your spouse is going to be deeper, and there's going to be some different things going on, different challenges, etc. But at the core of it, you can still work to make sure that you are doing these things, and this is in your heart, kind of so to speak, with other people before you get married. So I love that. That's something I want to pass along to, those that are looking to get married. I think that's an excellent point.
Yeah,
Now, oh, go ahead.
yeah. No, I was just gonna say, yeah, those questions are important, and oftentimes people don't think about them. How do you prepare for the next stage of your life? How do you prepare for marriage? I know lots of churches and pastors will have marriage preparation. It's a 1 week session or a 1 month session. But no, I think this preparation takes time.
Mm.
Um, and the earlier you can start, the better.
Yeah, that's good. One thing I've learned over the years that, and I've had to do a lot of self-reflection on is, there have been moments where I've gotten angry in my life and, the first thought is always like, well, this person did this or this happened and, I have a right to be angry. And I think over the years, I started to look inward a little bit more and say, well, like, where is that anger coming from? And a lot of times I find that it's, maybe it's coming from somewhere else. Maybe I'm tired, maybe I'm not feeling good, or maybe, maybe I'm angry at myself, or, maybe I'm not happy with how my life is going. And then I end up taking it out on someone else. And that's obviously not fair to do. But I think a lot of times these things are generated from inside of us. And I heard somebody say once, when you squeeze an orange, juice comes out of it. The juice didn't come from somebody else. The pressure obviously came from the outside, but what was in it was the juice that came from the inside. And you can't say, oh, well, this juice came from somewhere else. And so just like I can't say, well, my anger came from somewhere else, it's somebody else's responsibility. So yeah.
No question. No question.
Yeah, so good. Hey, I'm going to put you on the spot here a little bit. And maybe if you don't mind, tell us about, I don't know if there was a sore spot or maybe if there was something, in your own marriage that, in the 30 years that you all have been married, I'm sure there's been a time where maybe something happened, a lesson that you learned that you want to share with people to maybe make sure that they don't go through the same thing, or maybe they know what to do if it does happen. Yeah. Putting you on the hot seat,
Well,
Chris.
there are many, Brian. There are many over 30 years. However, one lesson I wish every couple could learn sooner is that love is less about finding the right person and more about becoming the right partner. In the beginning, it's easy to focus on what you want from love, companionship, understanding, affirmation. But over time, you learn that real love is something you give every day. It's built in the small choices, listening when it's inconvenient, extending grace when it's undeserved, and choosing unity over being right. My wife Jackie and I have learned that when both people focus on nurturing the relationship versus winning the argument, love deepens. In fact, it matures, becomes patient, gentle, and steady, just like the love described in First Corinthians 13. And the most beautiful part of it, Brian, is that when you have love that's intentional, you don't just stay married, you grow in love year after year.
Yeah. So good. What was that? Tell me again what you said earlier about don't look for don't look for something in your partner, but look to make sure you have it.
Yeah. So the point I was making is that love is less about finding the right person and more about becoming the right partner.
Yeah, that's powerful. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. So good, so good. Hey, I wanted to ask you if you feel if somebody's saying, you know what, my love has grown cold and I just don't think there's anything this is too hard. I don't know, is there like a first step you could recommend for people?
The first step is to soften your heart before God. When you let grace in, perspective shift. Then take one small step, intentional step towards connection. It doesn't have to fix everything overnight. It opens the door. reignite, it rekindles through consistent care, humility, and the willingness to start again. God specializes in resurrection into this space. He can breathe warmth again.
Thank you for sharing that. Chris, tell us about your book. You've got an amazing book. I want everybody to know about it.
Well, thanks for the opportunity, Brian. In a world where relationships often fracture under pressure, my book, Enduring Love, offer a faith-filled roadmap for cultivating the kind of love that lasts a lifetime. The book draws from the biblical principle from 1 Corinthians 13, my own personal experiences, and it invites the reader to rediscover what it means to love with patience, grace, and purpose. Whether you're married, engaged, or simply seeking to strengthen your connection with each other, this book reveals four things: how to build and withstand trials, how to nurture intimacy through faith and forgiveness, how to grow together through life-changing seasons, and most important, how to reflect God's unconditional love in your relationship. So, enduring love, quite frankly, wasn't just born from ideas. It was born, Brian, from lived experiences, years of laughter and loss, closeness and distance, growth and grace. It's really the fruit of real love that's tested, stretched, and strengthened over time. The book really reminds us that love that endures is not perfect, but it perseveres.
Mm.
So I'm hoping that message can connect, especially when, as we discussed earlier, people have become impatient with marriage and relationship, um, to understand that it's over time that they can build something enduring. The Bible gives us the tool, the instruction. Quite frankly, the Bible invented relationship and give us a tool how to build it and sustain it.
Wow, so
So,
good. Yeah, so
so
powerful.
yes. So I encourage your listeners to get a copy, Barnes and Noble, Amazon.com, also my website, ChristopherFalconer.com. Would love to share this message and for them to be a part of this journey to really build a love that lasts, that
Mhm.
endures. So again, thanks for the opportunity, Brian, to have this conversation, share this message, and would love to look, or at least look forward to really impacting lives. That's my goal. If this message can change one relationship, it's a success.
Oh, that's so good. Oh, that's so powerful. And thank you. And we will make sure that the links, everything that you shared about your book and how to get a hold of you and where to find you on the internet, we'll share those wherever people are watching or listening. And this has been incredibly powerful. This has honestly been one of my favorite, I think, episodes and subjects. And you're amazing. And I love what you're doing. And I definitely want to make sure that we stay connected. So thank you so much, Chris. Appreciate it. And
For
thank you all for
sure.
watching and listening.
And then one other thing, I'll send you the
Yes.
video trailer for the book. So look
Uh,
forward to that.
Excellent. Excellent. I will make sure I share that as well.
All
All right.
right.
Thanks, Chris.
Appreciate you.
Thanks, everyone. Take
Always a
care.
pleasure.